I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. This week, do you agree with a tax or levy on carbon emissions?
I have mixed feelings on that, to be honest with you.
So you're telling me if I pay taxes, it's going to make the weather better?
Well, someone got to pay for it. I'm involved in the oil industry, and I still agree with it.
But first, this pandemic began in Canada with a simple airplane that landed at an airport carrying the passenger that would be the first case of COVID-19 in Canada. This pattern went on for a short time later until the Prime Minister declared Canada's borders closed on March 20th of last year. And more recently, the federal government suspended flights from India and Pakistan with the hopes of stopping a dangerous new variant from entering this country. Also, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said the federal government needs to be more strict with travelers entering Canada by land, saying they don't self-quarantine once they get here. So we took this question to Canadians.
How has the federal government managed foreign travel to Canada during the pandemic?
No, I don't think there was enough restrictions on foreign travel, especially travel that is not essential, non-essential. So I really think that they could have tightened up a lot faster on closing the borders and putting restrictions on airlines and restrictions on public transportation. I really don't think that the government did enough and fast enough in terms of restrictions.
It's tough. Nobody really knew for sure how to deal with it, and it was all put together on the fly. I think I would have tightened things down a little sooner. It kind of goes to a wider opinion of mine that there should have been more severe lockdowns a lot sooner. It would have affected people more in the short run, but I think in the long run it would have been a lot better if we had taken it more seriously right up front. And I know they try and get the balance between keeping business open, people's livelihoods. But if you just stretch it out and stretch it out and stretch it out by not locking down properly in the first place, I think you end up losing anyway. So
again, I think it's a real challenge to try and keep people out or refrain people from having to travel. I think it has to come down to the concept of a necessity. And again, I think it's individual people that need to really evaluate, was that necessary for me to travel? Is it, absolutely pertinent that we travel? So we could always look back and see how we could do things differently. But I think for the most part, again, it's a challenge, and everybody was learning through this process. So I think we're making good positive steps and moving forward. So
I certainly hope they've been doing their best from a borders control standpoint. I mean, obviously I'd like to see more testing and tighter restrictions on that. But understand we can't shut down the world completely overnight. As I said, I think we could be doing better, and there are other things we could be, whether it's from a testing or restriction standpoint, maybe acting a little bit quicker in times where we see places like India where the variants are emerging. But all in all, I think similar to the provincial, we've done well, with room for improvement, obviously.
And it's hard too because it's the federal government that will manage the international travel and actually travel in general that's interprovincial, while still trying to work with the different provinces, if provinces want to shut down, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of logistics that go into that I think is easier than just snapping your fingers and saying stop travel coming from here. Having said that, if there's big outbreaks in certain countries, they have been on that, maybe a tad too late. But again, we don't know the intricacies of all the hurdles and legal sort of battles that they have to go through to deal with that.
There's no manual stating what to do and what not to do. So I guess, I'm no liberal by any chance, but they're doing the best they can.
Not great. Obviously, we wouldn't be in this position that we are now compared to, New Zealand, for example. I remember it was, January 2nd, of 2020, and I was reading about COVID, and I remember being oh, we should probably shut the border down, right now. And then, obviously, that did not happen, and then here we are. So it wasn't great. Or even that foreign travel is an option in general right now, I think is a little strange, because I even know someone who went to Texas not that long ago and came back and didn't isolate. So it's kind of not great.
I think it's been kind of bad. I feel like they should have just completely closed the borders, like 100% completely, not let anybody in.
I think they should have restricted it unless you have a reason to leave the country or come into the country. It should have been shut down completely. So I don't think anybody should be traveling for leisure right now.
I think it could have been done a little bit differently. I think they finally put some restrictions for 30 days from international travelers from India and Pakistan. So I think things could have been a little bit different. But like I said, I think everybody's trying to do their best in this unprecedented time. So I don't want to be too judgmental, but I do have a feeling that it could have been done a little bit different.
I think they've done a great job. I think the fact that people keep taking the negative rather than the fact that you have to isolate, you have to have a test before you get here. After, 4 days, you have to have another test. I think they've done a really, really good job.
They should have locked the borders down from day one. As soon as the second wave hit, lock the borders down. I don't think they should have opened up air travel. I don't think any non-essential travel should have been restricted. We're in the situation we are because our leaders haven't taken it seriously.
All the governments have been back and forth, and nobody seems to know what they're doing. And I mean, this cutting off India at this point, I guess that was wise, but probably should have done it sooner. But I don't know. It's hard for them. I don't blame Trudeau particularly. He's done just as well as our premier, for example.
I think they've done a great job in trying to shut things down and trying to restrict foreign travel. I think that the government's done a great job.
I think it's an ongoing experience for them, and this whole COVID thing there's never been a precedent for it, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because it's hard to, if you don't have a precedent, to follow guidelines, basically. And I think, with the borders closing and trying to enforce the quarantine, they're trying to do a good job.
I think in most cases it's handled it very well. There's always going to be people that are going to travel regardless. And I think, basically making sure that they've been quarantining, that sort of thing, have stopped the spread, not entirely. I think there are pros and cons to every decision you make, and governments can't live and rule every portion of our lives, right? They can just do the best what's good for society as a whole.
Imagine if we had closed down foreign travel way back when, how little the variants perhaps would have gotten into our country.
Recently, the federal government announced plans on raising the rates of carbon pricing over the next decade. Currently, carbon pricing sits at $30 Canadian per metric ton, and that could go up to $170 by 2030. On the Conservative side of things, their leader, Erin O'Toole, is proposing a levy on fuel purchases, which will later help Canadians make greener purchases. But either way, we will pay. So we took this question to you.
Do you agree with paying a tax or levy on carbon emissions?
I have mixed feelings on that, to be honest with you. I have a husband, he used to be with oil and gas, and I don't know if Canada is where we need to point the finger. I think it's we need to look at other places where there's a way bigger impact with carbon emissions, China and these places. So I don't know about that here.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Why?
Well, I mean, look around you. It's global warming, it's everything else. I'm involved in the oil industry, and I still agree with it. It's for the better of everybody. That's my opinion.
Climate change is a very real problem, and if COVID is bad, climate change is as bad or worse, and is affecting the people who deserve it least. So I think this carbon tax, I'm not afraid of the word tax. I think tax is not a bad word. I think we need to have everybody give us a little bit so that everybody can be, so the world can be saved.
I would agree with it a little, yeah. For those who are taking advantage of it, for sure.
Yes.
Why?
Because that seems to be what's going to work to actually decrease the carbon emissions, is what we need in the long term.
From what I can gather, I think it worked pretty well in some Scandinavian countries. I might be wrong about that, but I think it worked in terms of you tax as Trudeau would say, you tax pollution, and then some of those tax dollars you put into other types of green energy. So I think it can work. I think a lot of people say that it can't work and it doesn't work, but I think that's misguided. But I might be wrong.
Well, someone got to pay for it. You know, regardless, we need. Yes, you've got to have tax. I mean, that's life.
On carbon emissions, though.
Well, on carbon, I mean, so you got to have that, right? I mean, people are going to speak out about that. So what can we do? The gas is going up, it's going down, and you know, it's society. That's the way things work.
Yes, it makes sense. It's using sort of basics of consumerism, capitalism, market economy to achieve that goal. You know, otherwise you just sort of it uses those things that are already in place. You know, people will pay more for gas, therefore, because of carbon. But if they reduce the burning of carbon, some will come. It'll cost less, so people are incentivized to find ways to produce less carbon emissions.
Absolutely no, I disagree with that 100%.
Why?
Well, since when? So how is a tax going to help climate change? How is that going to help? So you're telling me if I pay taxes, it's going to make the weather better? So that we're not going to. I think that's the stupidest thing. It's just a tax grab. There's a lot better ways to, you know, reduce our carbon footprint than taxing the public. It's like, I think that's the stupidest thing. That's just a money grab. I don't, you know, I believe in, you know, like, let's save our environment, but how is you, me, and him giving you each $50? How is that going to help? It's not going to help anything except line the pockets of the politicians.
No, don't agree with that at all. No. I mean, we need fuel of some kind. We're not ready to advance into electronics all the way, so we do need it. We don't need a tax.
Yes, I do. I think it's beneficial. I really do. I think that's fine. It doesn't bother me at all personally. It does not.
It's going to be yes, because if you look at the trend of things over the years, it has shown that carbon emission is one of the reasons for, you know, floodings, changing, you know, weather, and we've had some natural disasters that has happened that has not been happening before. So if the scientists are saying we need to start taking carbon emissions seriously, these are experts in those fields. So we need to start taking it seriously. So if the government is saying they're trying to levy, you know, put a fine and all that around carbon emission, I think it's just for the common good of everyone.
I don't know if I'm knowledgeable enough to answer that. I don't know enough about it, really. It seems to change, you know, that information seems to change from one month to the next. You know, last year we were getting a rebate for tax, and this year, you know, nothing. And so I don't really know what it means to me. You know, so I guess more communication would probably be, you know, desirable for me to make a better, you know, decision as to whether or not that's fair. I just don't know enough about it.
In what year was the maple leaf flag adopted in Canada? Was it 1867, 1940, or 1965? The answer, 1965. When Lester B. Pearson became Prime Minister in 1963, he made it his priority to find a new national flag. The Canadian Red Ensign was a British flag used in Canada and was widely recognized as a national symbol since the 1870s. Former Prime Minister John Diefenbaker strongly opposed a new flag and favored Canada keeping the Red Ensign. A committee was formed to submit recommendations for a new flag and voted in favor of George Stanley's design of the red and white maple leaf. The new flag was inaugurated in a ceremony on Parliament Hill on February 15, 1965, and we continue to mark the occasion today.
Most of us did not know what to expect when this outbreak occurred 14 months ago, and since then, it's had a profound shift on the way we live our day-to-day lives. And that shift may have been a learning experience in itself. So we took to the streets to see if you've gained any wisdom since this whole thing began. Our question:
what has COVID-19 taught you?
That's a good question. It's taught me the value of friends, family. It's taught me the value of work. I mean, I knew the value of work before this, but I really miss working. I miss the routine of going to work every day, and yeah, it's taught me to really take care and cherish the things that I have around me and the people I have around me.
It taught me patience. I don't take anything for granted. I appreciate everything, every moment. Like every day is a chance to live for whoever surviving, and greatness and patience. Yeah, everything.
No, but I said we've learned how to communicate a little better than being in person, you know, the online and the Zoom and that. I never did that before this, but at least I know how to do it now.
It's taught me to, I definitely value a lot more about the freedoms that we do have. The access to public health is more important now than ever. And it's definitely taught me, first and foremost, that you got to be kind to yourself.
Really just like what's necessities, like how social life is actually like very important. It does get lonely for sure, like when you can only see your family, and like yes, I'm so grateful to have a family and still live with them, but yeah, not being able to see your friends on a daily basis does definitely affect the mental health.
That we all are fallible and that we need to appreciate what we really do have in Canada. I mean, how lucky are we to have all these vaccines, to have a safe place to live, to be warm, fed, you know? Yeah, we're lucky.
Discipline for sure, and how things can change in a dime. This all started in Far East, and it's so far away from Manitoba, but you know, all it takes is one case, and next thing we know, we're in a pandemic. So I think discipline, trying to take care of one another, trying to take care of myself.
It taught me that we should appreciate the freedom we have in this country, and we should pull together in a crisis like this. And if we do, as the cliche says, we're in this together and we'll get out of it together.
You do appreciate your homes, and I do appreciate the fact that I have tons of hobbies, so I'm not bored. I've got loads to do. And I've got my health. I walk every day, so I guess that has taught me to appreciate those things.
Wash your hands. I learned a lot about social anxiety and how unprepared we are even as ordinary citizens. You know, the beginning days where everyone was hoarding groceries and toilet paper and what. Just relax and help your fellow person.
COVID-19 has definitely taught me patience, and I guess through this hardship, everyone needs to be patient for sure.
Definitely how to be okay being alone, I guess. Because I was in high school obviously for the past 4 years. I'm very used to being out with my friends all day, you know what I mean, and got very accustomed to that. And so for the first little bit it was definitely uncomfortable just learning how to enjoy doing things alone, but I guess that would be the main thing, is just having fun by myself.
You should always think that, oh, maybe I got this and I don't want to pass it along to other people. So people should care about other people, because life is very important.
Taught me to be good with being by myself. You know, before the pandemic, personally, I'd be out all the time. I'd be with people. But since it's happened, I've learned to love being by myself and being independent and doing my own thing.
To appreciate some of the smaller things in life, I suppose. You know, whether it be family time or different connections with with certain people, and you know, as I said, an appreciation for other things and the things that we do have, and you know, also you know, the importance of you know, communities and that coming together to work to solve challenges that impact us all.
It certainly has. It's taught me that you know, living in a community, viruses can be transmitted extremely fast. It's also taught me that not everybody has the same opinion and wants to follow the rules. If there's a lot of anti-maskers out there, which I completely disagree with, and I think that people need to be more mindful of following the rules and protecting each other. I think this isn't a society where it's just you have to just look after yourself. You actually have to look after other people on the street when you're out and about.
View each other as a community, that what affects our neighbor can affect us, and that what we do for ourselves can benefit our neighbor, and what we do for our neighbor can benefit ourselves.
Well, how important it is to be able to get together with people, to have that connection, because right now, like everyone else, I'm feeling very isolated. I haven't had that connection with people. I'm used to being around people in fairly large numbers sometimes, and it's the main thing that I've taken away from this is how important it is to have just that human connection, and how it's lacking right now.
Patience. I guess that's the main thing, patience, and we have to do our best. We're all in it together, so we have to do it all together.
It's also taught us some things that we're behind on, maybe just certain preparedness for things like this. It's going to be a bit of a selfish one, but I feel like it's taught me how much I appreciate the freedom of movement. We take for granted the ability to travel between provinces, travel between countries. I grew up of a generation where if I got the money, I can head on a plane anywhere I want. And I definitely took that for granted.
In the midst of this third wave, cases are surging in different parts of the country like never before, and just at a time where we thought they might be going down. But with the vaccine rollout gaining momentum, there is hope that we can get this under control sooner than later. The goal of the federal government is to, of course, have everyone vaccinated by September. But even if you did receive your vaccination, it's still recommended that you continue to follow safety measures. With summer coming, everyone's going to want their freedom back. So, when do you see a light at the end of this tunnel? Our question.
When do you think things will get back to normal?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say if anything's really going to go back to normal, you know what I mean? Defining what your normal is, I think masks are probably here to stay. I'd say probably maybe by next summer, we'd be able to have, be able to go into a restaurant full capacity, maybe. I'm not sure though. It depends on how much the vaccines work and how many people take them and that kind of thing.
It depends what you call normal, I guess, because things now have changed a lot. They want you wearing masks now, and at the first they didn't know if you should or not. I don't think they're too sure when it's going to happen or what's going to stop it all. They just seem to be more or less trying to copy off each other. I don't agree with what they're doing right now.
I talk about that a lot actually, and I look at these little kids. I was walking down the street one day and these little kids are wearing these masks, and they're just kicking a ball around. And it seems harmless enough, but you think back to your childhood and it's really not good. But there's no way anybody can predict when this may go away. It could come back, it could mutate and be something far worse.
Things to get back to normal when we get our vaccines and when government is more prepared to tackle this pandemic as soon as it come up, because we don't know what's going to be the next thing that is going to come up. So we should start educating each other. Things will get back to normal as soon as possible, but it could get better if we keep that, the social distancing. We do our part by staying at home when we're supposed to, and if we try to just, maintain that health status as given by the provincial government and the federal government, things will get better and we could go back to normal.
I think things will get back to normal. I don't know, when people start following the rules and stuff and they look more into the vaccines, and I don't know, it feels like things are starting to come to normal now, so I don't know, just a matter of time before we, don't wear our masks and stuff.
It's not going to be an on-off switch. I don't think it's going to happen this year. Hopefully next year. And then, of course, there's the definition of back to normal. There'll be a new normal at some point as things even out, but it's going to take some time. And it's years, not months.
I don't expect to get my second dose until the fall sometime. So, September might be approaching normal, might be Christmas.
Please God, within the next little while. By the new year, for sure, I would hope so.
I'd say another year or two down the road yet. Once the vaccine's out, everyone's got their second and third dose, we'll slowly start seeing the new normal kind of thing.
I would say we're in for a longer haul than what people expected. Like as far as travel goes, like I love to travel in the wintertime, but I don't think it's all going to be back midwinter to early spring, and it's still not going to be the same. It's going to take a few years for it to get back to 100%, but it's going to be back to some normal, I think, midwinter.
I think it's going to be like probably 2022. I think it's going to be quite some time, and it'll have to do a lot with the rollout of the vaccines, and I think we're maybe a little bit slower than what everyone expected. So by the time everyone is vaccinated, I'd say another year for sure, yeah.
I think it's better not to always be thinking when things will get back to normal. I think the most important thing is think when the worst is over, and that hopefully people will learn something from it and not think that everything should be back to normal, that we have to be more concerned about our neighbors and of course I would like things to be back to normal in some ways, but I think we need to be more realistic about what normal is, and a little bit more compassionate.
What would normal mean? Would it mean like going to a rock concert without a mask on, or something like that? I mean, or a sporting event without a mask on, or something like that? I mean, I can't see that happening anytime soon. So I don't think anything is going to be normal for maybe 2 years, something like that. I don't know.
I'm hoping Labor Day. I would fear Christmas, but that's what I'm thinking. It'll get closer to normal over the summer, but not fully back. Normal will be a different thing when it gets here anyways.
I say it's going to be a couple of years. I think these things are going to stick around, and I think all the face shields and stuff are going to stick around in the grocery stores. That's going to be the new norm. Hopefully, I think masks will disappear. I give it another year.
How can you predict that? How can you predict that we'll be back to normal? Because you don't know what's going to happen the next day to the next. In my opinion, I think they should not jump the gun on this. To take it day by day and see how it goes.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.